Sorry, said I'd like to make some clarifying requests about the capital planning process, and since Mr. Harrington raised that issue. And the first comment I would make is that Mr. Harrington and Mr. Cahill and Mr. Hanley appeared at a capital planning committee meeting on November 17th, asking to get on the agenda for the following meeting. We spent about 20 minutes to a half an hour discussing their requirements with them, and learned at that time that that they did not have, at least at that point, did not have formulated a specific request. We explained to them the capital planning process, and which basically says that if the capital planning committee is going to recommend to finance committee and to town meeting an expenditure to be spent by the town, that there has to be an owner of that expenditure. In other words, whether it's a fire truck or sports helmets, we're not going to make a recommendation that we just go out and spend the money and then it sits there without any designated plan, program, or method of execution if that's required. Subsequent to that, we were also told at that meeting that that the school department had turned a deaf ear on this request. And subsequent to that, I received written communications from the chief financial officer, from the superintendent of schools, and from a member of the school committee that there was no request made with respect to this expenditure, and this was the first time that anybody had heard about it. You know, I'm just telling you what they told me. I'm not taking sides of this. This is the information that I received. I asked the deputy town manager at the time to provide Mr. Harrington with the process that the capital planning committee goes through to secure capital expenditures. And Mr. Harrington is absolutely correct. There is no process for a citizen to have a capital purchase on the part of the town. And I would strongly recommend that the town meeting and finance committee not even for a second entertain such a process, because at the end of the day, whatever is purchased has to have a house, it has to be managed, it has to be maintained, it has to be utilized by whoever is utilizing it, which means that there have to be town employees that are responsible for it. In the discussion that we had with Mr. Harrington at the time, we couldn't identify anybody that was going to be responsible for that. Subsequent to that, Barbara Thornton, who's our capital planning committee member responsible for monitoring or supporting the school department, offered to help Mr. Harrington fill out and organize an application for their request, which would be given to the school department. In other words, the school department has to make the request for this capital equipment if they want to make that request, so that the if I can put it in layman's terms, so that at the end of the day, the equipment has a home, it has a manager, it has a place, it has a use, it has a function. And so that somehow between Barbara Thornton and Mr. Harrington, the application was filled out, and Barbara Thornton personally brought it to the school department I wouldn't want to say on behalf of Mr. Harrington, but as a convenience or a favor, so that the school department could review it and act upon it. The subsequent information that we got back from the school department was that this is a very complex subject, that the school department has a number of health-related internal programs related to this subject that were ongoing, and that they did not wish to go forward at this time with the recommendation for a capital purchase. So subsequently, without a recommendation for capital purchase, or either in the current fiscal year or in the future fiscal year, from a responsible department in the town, the item is not in the capital budget or in the 5-year capital plan. And if in conversations with the school committee or the school department, Mr. Harrington and his group reach some sort of accommodation where the school department makes a recommendation to go forward with this type of acquisition, the capital planning committee, I'm sure, would be happy to, to consider that recommendation. But so far, we don't have any.
Mr. Chairman. Okay,